Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. It's been a long winter, hasn't it? And as I walk in the drizzle in London, I'm trying to be optimistic. You know, there is a fair amount of optimism around that this summer might be slightly better than the last one and the last few months as well. But there's still that feeling of lethargy I think a lot of people have got. We've just kind of hibernated for so long. And therefore, today's podcast guest, I think, might be perfect on Zestology. This podcast is all about energy and vitality. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that one of my most popular topics, and the one which seems that so many people like to download, is the law of attraction. So let's focus on the positive stuff. Let's bring some more of the good stuff into our lives with Oprah's favourite, Jeannette Maw, who, she's been on Zestology a few times and she's such good fun. She's more fun and attracting more good vibes than ever before on this podcast today. Lockdown has been quite the experience for her as she's been forced to use all of her law of attraction skills to kind of make things good. She describes herself as a full-time manifesting geek and good vibes coach. And I think you'll be feeling the good vibes after this. It's drizzling a bit here in London as I record this podcast intro, so here she is, and I'll come back at the end of the podcast. Jeannette Maw, welcome back to Zestology. It's been ages.
Tony, I'm so happy to play with you again. Thanks for inviting me back.
Oh, I'm happy to play with you again as well, Jeannette. How is the whole lockdown coronavirus experience going for you? These are strange times, aren't they?
It's been so strange, yes. I'm in one of the states in the U.S. that was pretty lax about their approach to the virus. I, however, was not. But pandemic life suits me. I'm really a hermit. I already worked from home. My business wasn't really negatively affected, so it's been pretty good for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think you're the same as me. Ultimately, total empathy for people who are going through a really tough time, and yet you've got to try and make the best of it and get on with it. And that's exactly why I wanted to speak to you again, because I know, for as many people as have been badly affected, there are a lot more who are just feeling a little bit low key at the moment.
Yeah, this is true. And I've got to tell you, maybe it's the nature of my clientele. The people that I work with tend to be conscious creators who are really good at finding what's working for them in their life. But a lot of them find themselves whispering when they say, I'm doing pretty good, or like their business experienced a tremendous boom because of coronavirus. They feel a little sheepish sometimes at how well they're doing. And yet, and our news likes to spotlight all the challenges. No, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think that we get whatever we look for. Yeah. And when we get deliberate about that, we'll find plenty going right and plenty going wrong.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And of course, because we're all so plugged into what's going on, and even you being a bit of a hermit, Jeannette, you must miss kind of meeting up with friends or seeing family or just general social contact. I mean, as much as business might be going all right, it's not how you choose to live all the time, is it? Come on.
You might be surprised, Tony. You know what this has done for my love life? Amazing things, because it requires... We get to know each other digitally, virtually, before there are any in-person meetups. And the only in-person meetup I had was when I had an emergency with a skunk. The neighbor trapped a skunk, and I offered to go release it rather than what they were going to do with it. And I thought maybe I could use some help for this. So I called the one guy that I'd been promising we'll meet up when it's safe. And I said, hey, how about a skunk release party for a first date?
Hang on a sec. So somebody had trapped a skunk and they called you because they thought Jeanette's good with animals.
I got wind of it and I inserted myself. They didn't actually call me, but another neighbor gave me a picture, gave me a T-shirt with the picture on it that said "Skunk Whisperer."
and then you turned it into a date.
I did.
And is this the lucky person who got taken on the skunk date? Are they still on the scene now?
Yes, I'm still promising that he's my first visit as soon as we've been vaccinated.
Great.
But honest and true, I really appreciate this new form of dating. I have read articles about it. I know I'm not the only one appreciating it. I think it's mostly women. I could be wrong about that, but there's definitely something to be enjoyed here when we look for it. Again, I know it would be easy to be frustrated, but I got a pretty good setup.
Yeah,
I got a pretty good setup. And I'm not totally alone, Tony. I saw lockdown coming and I was like, yeah, you better pick your guy. So I've got a guy here. It's not a love interest, but I'm not living alone by any means. And that definitely makes it easier.
Right. I mean, you're right about the dating. I mean, I am not single, but if I were, I would think that a date on Zoom is actually not a bad idea, because if you don't get on, well, you haven't bought dinner and you haven't given up a night of your life to sit in front of someone that you don't really want to sit in front of, but you can very politely say, do you know what, maybe this isn't working out, and good luck.
Well, to hear it from your perspective makes me smile even more about what this virus has done for the dating life of single people.
Yeah, good. So Jeanette, let's talk a little bit about conscious creation. And obviously some of the podcasts that we've recorded together have been some of the most popular podcasts that I've ever released. And I know that the law of attraction is an extraordinarily popular topic. And I feel that what you mentioned before about the news and where we put our attention is more relevant than ever. And the reason that I've noticed this is because with the pandemic, especially when it first happened last March, and to a lesser extent now as well, there is this desire to know the latest news. And therefore, we're all kind of logging in more than ever before. We're more switched on. We're more connected. We know exactly what the regulations are and when they change and what we should be doing. And it means we're putting all our attention into that place rather than into a place of kind of feeling good about life and all the things that we do have that perhaps we're not focusing on. Do you think that's fair enough in terms of the way that most people are living at the moment?
Exactly. I think it is fair to say for most people, and there are exceptions, and I, on occasion, am one, but I was locked in myself for quite a while, paying attention to the news and trying to wrap my brain around what was going on and how best to approach it. So I know that routine very well, but I also know that there is another way to do it, and there are plenty of people who are doing it. Of course, my world is filled with conscious creators, so I maybe see more of that than the average person, but I know it is very possible for us to choose to create our own reality, even when it seems like it's being forced upon us.
Yeah. And you are, of course, a good vibe coach. So that is why that's desperately what we're in need of right now. Let's just get straight on with it then. How do we become a conscious creator? And most people listening to this will have spent a little bit too much connected to a lot of depressing topics in the news, which is, it's absolutely going on. And I work on a news channel. I'm well aware of the fact that it's important and it's hard to get away from it. But we want to be well informed and then start manifesting some good vibes at the same time. How do we do that?
Well, I'm not opposed to being uninformed. For some people, that might be the easiest way to feel better, and that's to tone down how much intake we have of what's going wrong or challenging in the world. For some people, that's the best answer. I can't say that's my best answer. I do like to be a little bit plugged in and aware of what others in the world are experiencing, but I know that is a handicap to my good vibration. That is not usually supportive of it. And I also know at which point I'm getting like, okay, it's time to unplug. In fact, when the news of I was hearing about.
Oh, don't call it my variant. It's not my variant.
Yeah, that's when I decided, okay, I've had enough. I don't want to play this game anymore. And I know for a lot of people that's going to feel really harsh and unrealistic. but I knew I didn't have it in me to ride out staying as plugged in as I had been before. So of course I keep smart practices in place, but I really want to put stronger emphasis. So your question about how to become a conscious creator, I think it begins with understanding the power of our attention, that whatever we're focusing on is what we're breathing life to. And that when we switch that attention, we switch what we're creating in our reality. When we understand the power of our thoughts and how we're paying attention, then I think that gives us strong incentive to be a little pickier about what we're paying attention to. So maybe we can turn some things down and turn some things up. And that really is, in fact, Joe Dispenza called it the skill of observation, of recognizing that we can be in charge of what we're paying attention to. And anyone who's read up on the observer effect knows this is backed by science. This isn't just some woo-woo new age theory, but science is really putting out some incredible research to support the power of our attention. So with that in mind, if all we do is be willing to put more emphasis on what feels better and be willing to pay less attention to what doesn't feel good, and also to recognize that even in the face of whatever the reality might be, we have options of how we perceive it. It's like almost any situation could be looked at as glass half full or glass half empty, to be a little trite about it. But really that power of perception to recognize we've got some wiggle room, and the more wiggle room we give ourselves, the easier it is for us to perceive things in a way that serves what happens next.
Right. So the observer effect generally refers to the possibility that the act of observation may affect the properties of what is observed.
Yeah, and if we look at our real life, it's not hard to see how that happens. Like this morning when I was thinking about meeting with you, oh my gosh, how funny is this? So I was thinking about, this is my morning, so I was getting up a little bit early and I was taking a shower and I was thinking, this is audio, right? I was thinking, this isn't a video interview. And that thought's going through my mind. And I was like, Jeannette, do not manifest that this is a video interview. Not a lot of time for proper hair and makeup. So and
I did mine as well.
Well, and then when we meet up and you're on video, and my heart skipped a little beat. But when I was getting ready, it's like, no, of course it's audio, Jeannette. He would have told you if it was video. And then I was also thinking, that's how I was just, directing to what I want. I was also thinking, you better dial in a little bit early because knowing Tony, he'll be early too. And you don't want to leave him waiting. And sure enough, I logged on and you had reached out to me 5 minutes prior. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Little things like this, but it's for the big things too. What we're thinking about is going to come to pass. But it's more than what we're thinking. It's mostly how we're feeling. So that's that vibration. That's what we really want to pay attention to, is how we're feeling. And then simply reach for whatever feels better, whether it's in thought or action. That simple practice in itself is how we can create more enjoyable realities for ourselves.
Yeah. And I think, I think especially, and it is interesting to bring it back to the pandemic because, for example, when it all started, there was this, not only was there all the horrendous death and uncertainty, but there also was kind of like food shortages, and you weren't sure if you were going to be able to buy toilet roll. And every time the news came on the radio, I felt this kind of feeling in the pit of my stomach. And that is like a perfect example of what you're talking about, because I'd be listening to a song on the radio and then it'd be 10:30 and they'd say, oh, it's time for the news. And then the news would come on and my attention would go into a different place, and so would my feelings as well. I mean, it was a very visceral feeling in my stomach of, oh no, what's going to happen in the future? Yeah. So that's a good example of it, really.
Yeah, it is. And this virus can feel like a challenge to perceive in a different way, but we get whatever we look for. So if we're willing to look for the benefits or the perks or the blessings even, and I know that might sound a little sacrilegious or offensive to talk about, but it's all a matter of how good are you willing to feel. And that doesn't mean that I don't understand others are having a very different experience of it, and that I might as well. I mean, we're not certainly done with this by any means, but we've got a lot of room here for how we want to each personally approach it.
Yeah. So, I mean, this podcast is obviously about energy and vitality. And I think that there is a drain on our energy when we're feeling a lot of stress. How, practically speaking, how would we, let's say, I mean, I might as well talk about myself, let's say I've been working a bit too hard, not having very much fun because we're not allowed to, not having all the social interaction that I'm supposed to be having. How can I direct my focus towards feeling more energized? How would the good vibe coach encourage me to do that?
The first thing I ask people to look for is what is draining our energy, and then get creative about a different engagement there. So, for example, when I found myself listening to too much news, I scaled it down. I made a personal rule for myself that, okay, this is what feels better, because I didn't want to be completely ignorant of it. And for those who chose that, more power to you. I love that option. For me, it felt good to be a little bit informed. But I mean, maybe that's my line of work. I don't know. Maybe it's just an excuse because of the addiction of being tuned in. But if we pay attention to what our energy drainers are, and then get those handled. Yeah. So, for example,
well, absolutely. I just want to make the point. I work on a news channel. I'm definitely encouraging people to watch the news and be well informed. But once you step away, then you want to get back to a kind of a nice sense of equilibrium afterwards.
Mm-hmm. What helps a lot, Tony, is to know what our core values are, because we each have a different personal range of what our core values are. A value is just whatever is important to us, whatever matters to us most. It's what makes us who we are. When we know what our values are and we find ways to honor those, we can't help but feel better. That's an energy lifter in itself. So, for example, nature is one of mine, and I was blessed that I experienced lockdown on my own property. I could go outside without anyone looking sideways at me because I didn't have a mask or I didn't have a dog or whatever. But even if I couldn't get outside, plants. Oh boy, did I tend my plants through this pandemic. And I have animals here at home that make it easy for me to satisfy that core value. But for some people, it might be humor, or it might be learning. I have actually a free ebook on identifying what your core values is. If anyone's curious about how to figure out what yours are, I think you can download it at identifycorevalues.com. But that willingness to know what your core values are and then choose in favor of them whenever you can, that in itself is a vibration lifter. But if you combine that practice with also purposely closing those energetic drains, then you're going to do really well vibrationally and energetically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
For a lot of us, we had connection as a core value, and that's what many people have been struggling with.
Well, that's the difficulty, isn't it?
It is. And at the same time, this virus has brought a lot of people closer. It's helped them not take their loved ones for granted. It's helped them inspired to support their neighbors when neighbors were, or someone in the community was struggling. So it's done both by any means. And again, we get whatever we look for. So it's possible to still honor a core value of connection, even while we're staying 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Have you found, I mean, I've always been amazed at just how popular, not that you're not brilliant, Jeannette, but I'm amazed at how popular you are. Have you noticed during lockdown kind of even more people turning to you for kind of inspiration because they are so in need of the good vibes and manifesting something a little bit more positive than what's going on?
I have. I think people who have done really well on their own found that it helpful to have some support in feeling better and being more deliberate about the perspective we choose on life. But I have also noticed that I am out of range of some. For some people, I'm just offensive, to be willing to find what's going well in life right now. So there's definitely both happening, but of course, am looking for where I am helpful.
Yeah, that's
and
a bit unfair because I know that you've got plenty of empathy for people who are struggling and suffering. It's just that at the same time, we have to all look forward as well as acknowledge the fact that a lot of people are struggling.
Well, I couldn't agree more. That's my take on it. I got an email from someone accidentally. She obviously did not mean to send it to me. She hit reply instead of forward, but she was writing to a friend or thought she was writing to a friend. And she said, that Jeannette, she's just a little much sometimes.
Hey, I tell you what, talk about conscious creation. She was talking about you and she sent it to you by mistake. That is the law of attraction in action, isn't it?
Yes, and my ability to perceive that as an inadvertent compliment says a lot about my self-love practice. Instead of concluding, "Oh, I'm failing them. I'm too much." It did make me laugh.
That is very.
And
very
I
funny.
also felt bad for her because I thought, "Oh, she's going to feel terrible if she realizes her error." And sure enough, she did, and she wrote me and apologized. But I didn't take it the way.
Yeah, that'll be how people remember you, Jeannette Maw. She's a little much sometimes. Back to the podcast in one moment, but wanted to tell you about my podcast partner today, and it is one that is very on topic for Zestology. This podcast is all about energy and vitality, and today's podcast partner is CogniBiotics, nature's most powerful mood booster. When you can elevate your mood, you will naturally feel more energized. You'll naturally feel happier for no reason. It kind of combines biohacking and ancient wisdom as well. That's why I really like CogniBiotics, and it's one of the best podcast partners I've had in a while. Now, if you want a little bit more on this, you can head to CogniBiotics.com/Zestology. It's CogniBiotics.com/Zestology. And it's kind of like a probiotic blend with a prebiotic complex. And then the magic bit, the bit that gives it the Cogni bit, is a Chinese herbal blend, and some of the stuff they've put in here properly fits the bill of biohacking. It's really impressive and it works really well as well. I think you reduce those down days when you take CogniBiotics. You can stabilize your mood naturally. You can reduce stress, reduce anxiety, and produce mood boosting vitamins like vitamin K and vitamin B12 as well. And thus far, before CogniBiotics, there's not many supplements that I've found do something similar to this. L-theanine I quite like, and I take that sometimes, but CogniBiotics might be the most powerful mood booster and totally natural as well. You can go to CogniBiotics.com/Zestology and you'll get 10% off if you use the code Zestology10. So that's good, isn't it? CogniBiotics.com/Zestology, 17 powerful brain herbs to enhance your mood and manage stress and improve memory. Just take the edge off a little bit, which I think we all need at the moment. And it comes with a 1-year guarantee as well. So if you're not happy with it, you don't like it, you're not convinced, you can send it back and they'll give you a full refund as well. So as I say, I consider this pursuit of energy that we go on Zestology as being a combination of ancient wisdom and modern technology. And when the ancient natural wisdom can't step in, we bring in a little bit of modern know-how to boost it a little bit. And I think CogniBiotics combines the two really well by the kind of ancient wisdom of Chinese medicine and then all the modern research we've got to say, all right, well, we know that probiotics, prebiotics, and these Chinese herbs will really help you as well. So it's CogniBiotics.com/Zestology. Use the code Zestology10 to get 10% off. And if you're in the UK, just head to the UK BiOptimizers site, and it is a product made by BiOptimizers. You can use the code Zestology10 there, and you'll get 10% off as well. Do you know what? I really like these CogniBiotics, and I've been using them regularly. I'd love to hear from you and see how you get on with them. That's it. Back to the show. Now, let's talk about your latest blog, which I've been reading, and it is called The Trick to Winning the Lottery.
Oh, is that my latest one? Wow, I'm behind. So, yeah, I usually like to do a blog version of a podcast and vice versa, but sometimes a little behind.
Wow.
We had a major, like it was a record high lottery, and I don't play the lottery. I'm in a state that doesn't sell lottery tickets, so this isn't my jam, but I actually had friends who were leaving the state to go buy lottery tickets, and I just wanted to have a helpful reminder to those who were conscious creators about how to best do this.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because I know that you were saying the way to manifest a lottery win isn't waiting for reality to kind of tell you what to do.
This is the heart of conscious creation, Tony, and it applies to whatever it is we're creating. So many people wait for the reality to confirm that what they want is so before they're willing to feel that or acknowledge it or believe it to be true. But conscious creation is the reverse. It's that we're willing to lead our way into that reality. We're willing to believe it and know it before it is reflected in the physically manifested reality around us. And that's not the easiest thing to do, it turns out. To be willing to feel like you got the job before they make the offer, to be willing to feel like you're in a happy, rewarding relationship before you ever know what his or her name is. It's a tricky thing. And yeah, I wrote it in terms of the lottery because there was a lot of
right. So that's what. So there was a big lottery thing going on at the time. But do you know what? I really like the blog, and the last couple of lines is, if you're looking to be a lottery winner, be that now. Buy your tickets if you want to do so, and then go and enjoy yourself. That's what you wanted to win the lottery for anyway, right? Which is very good.
Yes, and so that point of, in fact, my other tip for how to win the lottery is so many people, conscious creators especially, when they're thinking about winning the lottery, they think about how their life will be different. And that is a powerful practice because whatever you're imagining is coming to fruition, like me imagining Tony being early and me not being there, Tony being on video and me not being prepared for video. Whatever we're imagining, we're preparing for ourselves to experience. So that can be powerful. But I also like to recognize how we already are lottery winners. It helps us be that right now. So if we look at what wouldn't change, maybe we'll keep the same spouse. Maybe we'll keep the same dog. Maybe we'll keep the same haircut. I mean, there are some things that won't change. And when we're willing to look for how we already are lottery winners, then we're offering the vibrational instruction that's in alignment with that reality. I don't like to talk about winning the lottery that much because I think it's a very limited way for people to anticipate their financial abundance coming to them. There's so many ways that it can happen, but I know it's one of the most often asked questions about how to manifest a financial windfall like that.
Yeah, and it's, I suppose in some ways it's a metaphor because the question that some people would ask is, Jeanette, if you've written a blog about winning the lottery, why don't you go and win it?
Oh, wow. Guess what I want to do, Tony? I haven't actually invested anything in this, but I want, the rule, you can't win if you don't play. I want to break the rule because I really like to break rules. And I was like, one of these days I'm going to manifest being a lottery winner without even buying a ticket. But I do feel like a lottery winner, we are in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, we were born with the kind of advantages or the life I'm living that I can enjoy a lockdown. I'm a lottery winner in a lot of ways already. So you're reminding me of a time back when I used to meet with clients in person, I met someone at the place she wanted to meet, and we parked next to each other, and her car was way more expensive than mine. I drive a car that is conducive to my life in the country with dogs. My back seats have never actually been up for people. They have always been down for dogs. And dog hair, that's my reality. Okay, so this was our first meeting, and she looked at me and she said, "No offense, Jeanette, but why should I be hiring you?" And it was a perfect opportunity to talk about how, that we each value different things. What I value is different than what she values. Obviously, She was hair and makeuped out, and she was, the clothes and the jewelry and the shoes and the car, the lifestyle, so much different than mine, who was, devoted her life to a very different way of living, and not as a sacrifice, but as a preference. But that recognition, we don't all want the same things. And, we each get to define for ourselves what success looks like. So my idea of success is different than hers. But frankly, I would argue a lot of people are just accepting someone else's, society's definition of success rather than truly discovering their own. I certainly lived that myself for many years when I was just going along with what others thought I should be doing, like building a career and getting ready to have a family and, all the things that my culture felt was important for me to, make sure you look a certain way and dress a certain way and you get your degree and all the stuff that, if I had known to ask myself back then what really matters to me, my life could have taken a very different turn. And early days.
Well,
but I made it now.
you did, and I think this is where it's interesting to tie it back to what's going on at the moment for people. Remembering that it's not all terrible what's going on at the moment, and connecting with, whilst acknowledging the suffering that people are going through, acknowledging the good stuff. I mean, connecting with more of it, because there is good stuff in our lives, and for most of us who thankfully haven't been as badly affected as some, being under house arrest is not too bad when you've got central heating and a TV and and Zoom and FaceTime. It's just not as bad as some of the things that our ancestors suffered. So that's the thing to connect with, isn't it?
Yes, and the phrase I like to remind myself of that I heard from someone on a reality TV show. It was actually a former NFL player getting kicked off of Survivor after his best friend betrayed him and voted him off. And he, in his exit interview, which is supposed to be drama-filled, he said he had eyes to see the gifts. To be out there in that amazing part of the world and to have been with amazing people and to play this game that not very many people get to play. And normally those exit interviews have swear words and tears and anger and rage.
Yeah.
And for this guy, former NFL football player, to be saying, I have eyes to see the gifts, it was so inspiring. And I thought, that's exactly what I want. I want eyes to see the gifts. No matter what's going on in my life, I want to be able to see something that I can appreciate about this. And that isn't always the case, but the more we practice it, the better we get at it, and the more we enjoy life as we do.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And all this stuff is important because whilst we hope that things are getting better, and we're recording this in February, it'll probably go out sometime in March. I mean, things do seem to be on the turn a little bit, but it's clearly not going to be a magic switch where we're all just going to go back to hugging and kissing and pre-pandemic days. It's going to be with us for a little while. It's going to be a little bit slower the way that we come out of this, and it's going to be a slightly bumpy road for people. So I think we have to put more conscious thought into looking after ourselves and where our minds and brains are at than ever, really.
Yeah. And if we approached this as a puzzle, and for some, it might be an impossible puzzle. For others, it's a cinch of a puzzle. But if we considered that this is bringing us gifts, and if we're willing to puzzle out what those gifts might be, we get whatever we look for. And when we can see, there's a principle in conscious creation about the power of contrast, that when we experience what we don't want, it launches a new desire for what we do want. This is a teaching of Abraham Hicks in particular, but many other teachers reflect this. So to experience what you don't want or anything unpleasant, it gives you a new desire or a stronger desire for the opposite of that. And that in itself can be the gift that comes from an experience like this, including that we don't, again, take for granted the ability to swing by your parents' house and see how they're doing, or to hug a friend when you see them on the street, or to go to sleep not fearing what this sore throat might mean for you. I mean, there are definitely benefits to be had from this, and that willingness to look for them can be a game changer in how we experience life, because this isn't the last one. There will be more challenges up ahead. I think this one has been rather extreme, but yeah, it gives us good practice on how to have eyes for the gifts.
It does. Yeah. Well, I'm glad things are going okay for you anyway. I mean, I kind of sensed they would. I thought, if I need, this podcast is all about energy. I thought if I need a bit of an energy boost, you're the person to talk to. You've always got good energy about you. And it is hard, isn't it? I mean, you chatting to Skunk Man, but not actually being able to meet up with him properly. That's just not easy, is it? It's not quite the same looking at someone on a screen.
We haven't actually even had any screen time. So
Right.
Phone and text.
Phone and text, right? Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not here alone. I do have a fabulous person that I've learned how to enjoy really well.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There was some contrast. But I knew that this could either be a nightmare or this could be amazing. And over time, I have tended towards amazing.
Great.
So amazing that I hope he doesn't leave. I really, and some are like, oh, that could put a damper on your love life. No, actually not. It's the opposite. It's going to be whatever story I tell about it. No one else gets to tell my story.
Yeah.
And I like this so far. I'm having a really good time with it. But no, it's not hurting my feelings all that much. I really have natural hermetic tendencies. And that was so for me, and I know for a lot of introverts, this pandemic, I've seen the memes on Facebook. I'm not the only one who has found this to be a relief that we stop getting invited to places and we don't feel pressure to go out in public. I may be unusual. I know I'm not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously I've asked you this question before, but I'm going to ask you again. What is one book you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy and vitality?
Okay. One book. I cannot stop talking about The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. I just finished it last week, and it comes up in almost every client session that I'm doing. It's amazing. Okay. And it's not the easiest read. It is kind of an interpretation of how the science supports the principles of conscious creation, but it explains a lot, or at least it's got the potential to explain a lot, because none of this is really agreed on by everyone, but they're talking about the leading theories among the researchers who study this stuff for a living. It's really inspiring about giving us even more empowerment around the world that we're choosing to create for ourselves. I'm a huge fan, but I don't like it as much as the one that I read last year, which is the Quantum Revelation by Paul Levy. It blew my mind. They're very different books. If someone looks at The Holographic Universe and they think, not for me, check out The Quantum Revelation by Paul Levy. And if you love The Quantum Revelation, you might not like The Holographic Universe as much as I did, but wow, you should totally check it out, Tony. It was written a while ago. The author is deceased, but it's still really, really, really good.
Oh, great. Fantastic. And then what about one tip for living with more energy? What would you say?
Stop doing what you don't enjoy. Give yourself permission to opt out of the things that are not lifting your vibration. That can be a really courageous thing to do, but it's worth getting good at. And when you do some of the little things, like opting out of the energy drainers that we talked about before, when you just are willing to not engage those things that bring your energy down, then you'll recapture that lost energy and have more fuel to invest in the things that you do love. It's probably the same tip I gave last time, but really it's a powerful place to start. And it's a gift of self-love. Stop doing the things that you don't enjoy.
Sometimes we have to do the things we don't enjoy. I mean, I have to change my son's nappies, but I can't say I enjoy it that much. But if I opt out,
would you? Okay, so when you look, that's a really good example of. Okay, it seems like it's not an option, but it is an option. Believe it or not, there are some dads who don't change diapers. Would you want to be one of those dads?
No.
Of course not. So you're choosing it. That recognition that this is what I choose. It feels like a choice, and that's got better energy in it already. I don't know. I maybe have time to tell a super quick story about someone who didn't enjoy motherhood. That was her challenge to me. She didn't enjoy any aspect of it, didn't want to do it. And so I gave her permission to opt out of it. She was going to turn the kids over to her ex-husband, who she believed to be a good dad with his new wife. She thought they'd be in good hands, and she was going to go live the life of her dreams. And as soon as she gave herself permission, she could opt in to motherhood. When I talked with her next, and I was like, so how'd it go when you told your ex about it? She's like, I would never give up my kids. She spoke about it like I was crazy to consider it. But once it became a choice, it was more enjoyable for her than when she thought she had to do it. And if we recognize that about everything in our life, this really is a choice, then it already brings better energy.
Yeah, definitely. There's a famous British comedian who says he has a joke about nappies. He says, I didn't change that nappy changed me. And that's certainly, happened a few times. It's a brilliant joke. But Jeannette, no, I feel better about it already. Thank you very much. That's a great place to end, I think. It's lovely to talk to you. Let's speak again in 6 months or so. I want to hear what happens with the skunk episode and obviously everything else as well. So as always, it's lovely to talk to you.
Thank you again, Tony. I hope you stay well, and I look forward to our next connection.
that is it for today's podcast. Thank you to Jeannette Maw, and thank you for listening as well. Hope you enjoy using the law of attraction this week. Things are getting better, aren't they? I'm not feeling too bad, and certainly energised after listening to Jeannette. I think I've told you a couple of times, I've got a very special announcement coming shortly. It's about my new book, which has been going on in my life for quite a long time. I've been writing it for blooming ages, and it's about to come out. I'm going to record a podcast about it in a couple of weeks' time because I'm quite excited about it. And it kind of plugs into this feeling that we've all had over the last 6 months, year or so, and how to shake it off and energise and revitalise and recharge as well. So please do look out for an email from me if you're on the mailing list. That'll be I'll send out an exclusive preview in the next week or so, actually. And then also the podcast itself on the book. You can pre-order it on Amazon as well now if you search for my name. This episode is brought to you by Powerful Brain Herbs. Just what we need at the moment. If you've ever felt unhappy or down or off, especially recently, then these brain herbs might be the one for you. It's CogniBiotics, the breakthrough mood-enhancing formula made by BiOptimizers. If you head to CogniBiotics.com/Zestology, you'll get a discount. Use the code Zestology10 and you'll get 10% off. I mean, what better than brain herbs to make you feel good? And these CogniBiotics are quite something. I mean, it's a brilliant idea, actually. Kind of optimizing your mood by looking after your brain and your gut as well, which I love. And I'm kind of fully plugged into as well. So that's CogniBiotics.com/Zestology. Use the code Zestology10 to receive 10% off. And if you're in the UK, then head to BiOptimizers.co.uk and you can use the code Zestology10 there as well. Thanks for listening. More on my book coming soon. Enjoy the law of attraction this week. Good vibes, hey? And I'll see you then.